Look out, the captain's away.
The Rugby League Hour, brought to you by Microbiome Solutions Limited, makers of Fluix, the new way to clean up dairy effluent and wastewater while increasing the fertiliser value of your irrigation in one easy step. Visit microbio.co.nz for more.
Strong, powerful, try.
Welcome to it, ladies and gentlemen, the Rugby League Hour. My name is Martin Devlin.
And I'm Tony Kemp.
We have got in front of us the weekend roundup up the wires. He's a ledge, and that is Daniel Anderson joining us today, the former Warriors coach. We go head to head. Also, Tony does his top five in the Fluix Clean Up Award. But we start the show the same way every week with 6 quick questions in no particular order from what we've seen over the weekend. Are the Warriors still a top 4 side?
No.
Are the bottom 4, as we look at them right now, going to be the bottom 4 come season's end?
I can't see it changing.
Were you more impressed by what you saw from the Sharks last night, or less impressed by the Canberra Raiders?
You got to give the Raiders a pass, Mark. They had too many injuries. They're pretty awesome, though, the Sharks.
Is last year's Panthers side a lot better than this year's Panthers side?
No way.
Is this the beginning of the end for Benji Marshall? They were 2-1. He's lost the last 4.
Not because Richo signed a 4-year contract, the CEO.
And is your boy Flano still a great coach despite the fact his team got towed up by 60 points?
Where do the Warriors sit in that?
Yeah, good point, actually. No.
The Weekend Roundup.
Quickly through the results for you. It all started back on Anzac Day. It seems a long time ago. It was 5 days ago. Warriors losing at home to the Titans 27-24.
How do you go to 12 points after 12 and a half minutes and still lose that game?
Dragons 18. Roosters flogging them by 60.
Munster, he's back.
Storm pretty much doing the same to the Rabbits.
Yep. Very good, wasn't he?
Eagles over the Eels. Easy.
Eels gone. Marty?
Broncos over the Tigers. Easy.
I'll tell you who the one there. Watch out for the Broncos. That's the form.
Panthers over the Cowboys.
Just doing enough.
Are they sleeping? They've been falling asleep, the Panthers?
Oh, they're 20 points up front. Jeez, give them a break.
Your Knights. No, they looked okay against the Dolphins.
How did they do that?
How did they do that?
It's the Dolphins, mate. They're a little bit like a ship sinking, aren't they?
And that Sharks side absolutely whacking.
Unbelievable.
All right, top of the table, it goes Sharks, Storm, Panthers, Seagulls, Broncos, Dolphins, Roosters and Dogs in that order. We'll get on to the Warriors. We've got a lot to talk about as far as they're concerned. We'll do that in 10 minutes or so. This Sharks side, though, right now, they've beaten the Wars, they've beaten the Dogs, they've beaten the Raiders, they have beaten Souths. Last 2 games, they've put 40 on the Cows, they put 40 on Canberra again, but that was at the Raiders' home base. The only game they've lost is the Tigers. Are they a top 4 side?
Well, they are, because they haven't received any points from a bye yet either. So 14 points out, clear in front. Oh, look, I think that top 4, even I'm going to say top 5 goes close to finishing the season like that.
Sharks, Storm, Panthers, Sea Eagles, Broncos. I'll ask you the same question about a Storm side, which up until that result against Souths was not struggling for wins, but they were all narrow wins, Tony. They were all 8 points or less.
The sign of a good side is when a team is struggling that they put them to the sword, and that's what the Storm did to Souths. There's all sorts going on there. Demetrio, does he hold his job? I think he's week to week at the moment, Demetrio. So you're gonna say that the Storm should have beat them. Of course they should have beat them, but I think what you can, when you look at it, what you can get out of it is that like players such as Munster that has such good games. Mate, he's 3 weeks out from the Origin. New South Wales be packing themselves.
I'm going to go through a few teams here, those that are winning, and I'm looking for patterns. Manly in the last 4 have beaten Penrith. They drew with the Warriors. They've beaten the Titans. They've beaten the Eels. How impressed are you by them right now?
I said it right at the beginning of the year. The Eagles look like they're definitely a chance of making the 4. I think that out of all of those teams in the top 5, I think Manly have probably got the most gears still to go through. The Broncos hit that form on the weekend, but the Sea Eagles just look like they're doing enough to win games as opposed to what the Roosters done when they just wiped them, wiped the floor of the team. So are they a top 4 side? Like if you're a Manly supporter, where they're sitting at the moment, you've got to give them a chance.
Can you see them getting better? Like, is this the side that's going to improve from the way they're playing now? As you say, they're going through the gears. Where is their end?
Their big back row. There was a big battle out there on that right edge. Ukakolotu, I think his name is, and he was mate. I saw him do a couple of things on the weekend. There's talk of him making the New South Wales side. And when you've got players around him like Briggs, and Briggs got a bit of a hiding defensively, Cherry Evans, tough players that are actually playing like real old school halfbacks. Mate, you got big players like that running off you at the edges. They sort of remind me a little bit about like Penrith were 3 years ago. You know, we had Luai, you had Cleary, the old head sitting there. I think Briggs coming in with Cherry Evans, and then you've got these big outside players and speed to burn. Oh, if they get it right, I think they're the scariest side in that 5 at the moment.
Not the Panthers?
No, I think Nathan back this weekend, just gone. Rusty. He was rusty in that final few minutes, but they're going to get better, the Panthers, and they know how to win games. They're hanging around the top 4 at the moment, Marty, and I think they've just been doing enough as well. The likes of the Sharks and the Storm definitely are the better form sides at the moment, but the Panthers know how to get it done. And like you said before, no one really cares about this part of the year still. You know, it's the back end of it.
Well, you do if you're a Warriors fan at the moment, mate.
Well, let's have a look at the Warriors, okay?
Well, we're going to talk about this big time in about 5 or 6 minutes. But right now, I asked you, are they still a top 4 side? You said no.
No, I don't think they are. Look, like I said to you, they look like an old team that goes out and hits their straps really early. Warm-up's good. You know, you get a home crowd. Everyone's on a buzz, and and teams defensively struggle against them. But then they just get into the grind. And what has been disappointing about the Warriors last year when they got into the grind, they stayed in it. And they wore teams down. But over the course of probably 12 weeks, they've lost more than they've won. And I'm talking about, you go through the final series in that last game against the Dolphins last year at home, and all of a sudden when they get into the grind, it's not a grind. It's actually they're chasing games. You know, I thought, man, do the Titans know how to win at the moment? They've lost every game so far this year. It looked like they're going to lose this game against the Warriors. But I think what they haven't got at the moment is they haven't got that, that real, what would you call it, like steel about them. You know, it's going.
Well, I just feel like
it's
these
going
have been
nice and
away.
easy. It's
these have
going
been
nice and
slipping
easy.
away. There's 3 weeks in a row. These games, if you're going to make and finish the top 4, you need to win against a Manly side. Well, okay, they came back and drew that game. I'll park that one. But you need to win against St George and you need to win against the Titans. If you look at the top of the table, the top 4 have only lost at the most 2 games. Eagles have lost, 5-1-2, and the Panthers are 5-2. So you've got the Broncos sitting underneath them. You look at that top 5. Is that 5 as you're looking at right now? Do you think that all of those teams are dead set certs to now make it?
Yeah, well, you generally let half a dozen plus games go before you start making your mind up where teams are. You're looking at their depth, because one of the other big things that are playing out in the sides this year, Marty, is when players are going down injured. No Kalen Pong and the Knights come out and win that game. Reynolds goes down with a serious cramp and he's missed a couple of games all this year, and they've won a couple and lost a couple. So Nathan's been out of the Panthers. I think injuries at the moment have been evening the competition up, but it's the first time in 8 weeks that I've looked at the table and gone, actually, that's my 5. And when you're looking at the form over the first 8 weeks, the Sharks, the Storm, the Panthers, the Sea Eagles, and the Broncos, I don't think anyone who's been watching the competition would be arguing about that.
No, I don't think so. I think you're exactly right with that. Look, those teams have got class all over them, haven't they? And perhaps a bit of a surprise that Manly are there, but you can't deny 5 wins out of the 8 in that draw. Then you come down from the Dolphins, Roosters, Dogs, Cowboys, Raiders, Dragons, Warriors. I'll go as the Knights and the Eels. I'm still doubtful on both of those teams, but you're talking about 8 or 9 teams there that are having to go now into 3 spots. Is that where the Warriors are sitting at the moment? Are they now battling with that pack to make the 8?
I think you've got to get 17 wins. I think you have to get 17 wins out of the competition to actually make the 4.
Yeah, Warriors got 16 last year and made it.
Yeah, so the more games they lose, the draw. I said that to you a couple of weeks ago, that 1 point's made them pay. You've got 4 teams jump above them. You've got the Bulldogs sitting at 8. You haven't even mentioned the Titans, who you said, they're going to win a game, finally get one against the Warriors.
Did their best to try and lose it at the end.
I don't see the Rabbits, the Titans, or the Tigers beaten too many teams this year. I just can't see it for the life of me. The Eels, look, I've written them off over the last 2 weeks. The Knights is anyone's guess, and they showed that last year. They went on a roll. Can the Warriors go on a roll?
They're going to have to.
Well, I'll tell you what, the more games they lose and the further they get behind, they're 7 points behind the leaders, and none of the top 4, actually top 5, have had a bye yet.
So looking at the teams at the very bottom, Tigers, Titans, Rabbits, I think if you'd asked anyone at the start of the season, you probably would have had 2 out of the 3, the Tigers and the Titans, in there, right? So
I definitely would have had the Rabbits in there.
You
no
would
way.
No, okay. So are those three teams the three bottom teams from this point on? Can you see any resurrection happening in those three teams, despite the Titans having that win?
I can't see it in the Titans and the Tigers. I think the Titans, when you look at their game on the weekend, they've got some players that can play football in there. But if there is a resurrection out of that bottom three, it has to be the Rabbitohs on the change of a coach. You'd have to say that their class, especially through that spine, you've got New South Wales hooker, fullback in 5'8", sitting there. Ilias is out for the season, so they've got to find another halfback somewhere. And then you've got the big boys up through the middle that have played plenty of Origin and international football themselves, just playing ordinary football. And I think with a change of coach, and I think that will happen sooner rather than later, if anyone was to come back and go on a bit of a run out of those bottom three, you'd have to say the Rabbits were the only ones that could do it.
North Queensland, who, at various stages in the 8 weeks we've been doing this, we've been looking at them saying, oh yeah. They're now sitting in ninth spot. They're 4-4, but they've lost their last three: Eels, Sharks and Penrith, 3 in a row. Are they still a threat, or is what we have just seen evidence of the last three games more of where they're exactly at?
Yeah, look, I think 10 through 13, they can change weekly. Teams that is sort of, you got 10 points down through 7. I think the Knights even on 6 points, you'd have to say that they're a chance of a couple of wins getting up and climbing up that ladder. The Cowboys, they just can't stop points, mate. Even against Penrith, they let 20 points in before they decide to go. They can score plenty, and they showed that in the back end of that game, right down to the last 4 or 5 minutes. They get a couple of tries, they try and steal one late, which they did last year, if you remember their form. But they're just they're too leaky, mate, and you're going to win a competition if your defence is like that.
Okay, come up real close to the microphone and gob like you would over Flano, because the thing is that how do you explain that 60-point pasting from the Roosters? Is that the Roosters playing out of their brains, or is that St. George? St. George put 30 on the Warriors and played well in that game.
Well, that's the form, innit? Like, if you go, well, how good are the Roosters going? Well, look at the St. George Illawarra Dragons. They go down to Wollongong. It's a hard place to go down there and win, but they give it to the Warriors down there. And they're playing against a team who hasn't won a game, and they lose against that. And then Sydney City come out and they put 60 on the Dragons. Look, I think when you're looking at teams that can actually go 12 points ahead and carry on with it, that's scary. That's looking at a side going, well, if they can string some confidence together, games that give them confidence, I think the Roosters can go on a bit of a run, and they've got class, coming into form. You've got Origin coming up. Does Tedesco go to fullback? You've got the big boy from England on the wing. Michael Jennings is back at 555 years of age. Jared Warrior-Hargraves is retiring at the end of you've got Brandon Smith has just signed for another 4 years, I think it was. So you've just got all of these good things happening in that club at the moment. If they do get on a bit of a roll, they get a lot of confidence out of that game where they can go out there and beat St. George like that. It's whether or not they can continue winning, And I think when you're looking, if you were comparing them and the Warriors, they jumped out to a lead, but they didn't stop.
Daniel Anderson is going to be with us in about half an hour from now. I want to talk about Terry Hill. You played with him, you know him. And very sad news over the weekend.
Yeah, it was actually. I got a message from my good mate Izzy Dagg last week, and he said, "Hey Kempy, do we have him on our show last year, Terry Hill?" And I said, "No, mate, it wasn't him. It was someone else." I didn't even know that he'd passed away. So I just went on and said, "Why would he ask me that?" And I just put Terry Hill in your Google as you do, and it popped up that he was overseas somewhere in Asia and passed away. Hell of a funny guy. Played against him a couple of times. He played for Sydney City. I think it was West. He played for Balmain.
Manly, wasn't it?
Manly. He was very good for Manly. I think Ridgie might have played with him at Manly as well, Ridgie and Posty. But, geez, he was funny, and he was one of the best sledgers. Because back in those days, Marty, like sledging, you'd probably get locked up for some of the things you'd say back then.
Really?
I can't say a couple of the ones that I've heard, but even the ones before us, some of the stuff that I've heard that went on before us back in the Jeff Bugden and Mario Fennick days when they were packing down, when the Bulldogs and the South City boys were facing each other. Those two packs were lethal, and some of the stuff that they were talking about to each other. Terry Hill was sort of at that level as far as sledging goes. But the thing with Terry, he could back it up, mate. Played Origin. He's got that wonderful picture of him and Tallis.
Going hard,
played for Australia,
nose.
won grand finals. I think later on in his life, became really big in the greyhound industry, in the racing industry, and he had a lot to do with that actually get a bit of a profile. So, yeah, really sad news that Terry's passed. I think he was 52, so he's way too young.
Way too young.
Oh, superb!
Up the wires.
How good is that?
Do Warriors fans, including myself, need to lower the sights, forget about winning the Premiership and realise that making the 8 would be an achievement in itself? At the very start of the season, I said, look, what this team has got to do is be consistent, and that's make the finals year after year after year for 5 years, 6 years, be a permanent fixture in that finals. Then you can start talking about a Premiership. Was all of that a bit premature?
Well, it's a good analogy, what you've spoken about. You do need to have some resilience around your form and hanging in there for long periods of time and building that, that winning attitude. If you go back, Marty, if you go back to pre-COVID, their form was pretty average. Yeah, and they all lived overseas, and we take our hats for them doing that for the NRL, because if without the Warriors, they probably wouldn't have played that comp. Then they've come home, and this is what I want. I want to sort of put this in your mind, just to have a little bit of a think about it. Andrew Webster's come out and said we want 3 days off. Okay, so he's come out after the game. He said 3 days off. You asked me what it looked like in the game, and I said, well, it looked like they were old men who started well, and they just can't carry it on. They're really tired. But if you look back at their form, towards the end of the year, they had such a big year where everyone was playing so well. Everyone, 1 to 17, no matter who they put in there, was having a really good year. That at that back end of the year, they started to lose. So they lose to the Dolphins, then they go out, I think they lose to the Panthers in the first semi, then they come out and they beat Newcastle Knights by 40. Everyone thinks, shit, they're going to go up to Brisbane and win. And I went over there and commentated that game. And they get towed up, mate. And then they come out during the season. They've won 3, drew 1, lost 4.
Lost 4 now.
So it looks like a really, really tired team. You know what I mean? And the only thing about tired teams is tired legs. It's like, the fullback that ran out for Newcastle, the new boy on the block, he's like a brand new Toyota Prius, with 0 clicks on the clock. He scored that wonderful try on the inside there off young Hastings. And then you look at our boys. Well, we're not brand new Prius, mate. We're like a Mini that's been around the clock 400 times, trying to keep it up. And I think what we've got is we've got some players now, and this is what we said right at the beginning of the year. If they had to make the 4, they have to have the same type of year as what they did last year, where everyone is in form. Now, Wade Egan, as last 2 weeks for me, has played himself out of the New South Wales considerations. Defensively, he's been average. If you look at how they're playing their football game, the only bloke that's really stood up and who's, stepping up is a bloke who's not going to be here next year, is Adam Fanua-Blake. Everyone else, I think Jackson's having a pretty average year. Chance, look, in the last 20 minutes, really, really tight. You can't keep running for that type of game meters and not need a break. Roger's getting frustrated. Sean, and I pointed this out last week, is starting to yell at players. Now, when you get all this sort of playing around in the background, yeah, I think your analogy is, are we got our sights set a little bit too high? I think the competition's telling you that you've got to be pretty good week in, week out to remain at the top, especially in the top 4. Because teams like Newcastle, who came out against the Dolphins, who had no chance of winning, will beat you.
So what is more of a worry, though? Because I want to get into specifics of this game, and it was a few days ago, and I know people have probably talked it to death, but even so, I've got a whole lot of questions that have been brought in for us here that I want to ask you. What's more of a worry, though? Is it shipping 30 points against St George? Is it shipping 27 consecutive points against the Titans? Or is it losing those games? It might sound like a dumb question because, of course, you don't want a loss. But that's a lot of points to concede. And we didn't concede that last year. We only conceded 30, I think, twice to Newcastle and Brisbane in the whole campaign.
Yeah, well, defensively is the problem. Forget about the scoring points, because we can score points. But you don't want to be giving sides 27, 30 points. Because most sides, if they're defending like that alongside you, you're getting games that go right down to the wire. The game against the Storm, they had that one wrapped up. They lose in the last play of the game. You know what I mean? They lead games that they should win, and they're fighting to come back into games, and they're trying to get them. But the thing with it is, it's like for like. You're playing against teams with leaky defence, and yet your defence is still really leaky. So I think if they come back off a break, one of the things that Andrew Webster will be really concentrating on it, and they go on about this Panthers system, defensive system. Well, the thing about the Panthers system is that it's the Penrith Panthers 3 competitions, but it's given coaches 3 years to work it out, And if you're a team that isn't the Panthers, which we're not, okay, look, we're not the Panthers. They've got a few better players that I think that we have, but you've got to pull off that system better than what the Panthers are. And if you've got coaches that have seen it for 3 years, I think what they're doing, and this is what we talked about before, is they're breaking it down a lot easier now. And they're saying, well, they defend like this. Let's go and stick in the middle and let's run through the middle. Let's run through Sean. Let's tire him out. Let's get through that yardage and grow and build the momentum into this game and we'll score some points. And the defence for me, it's not losing to those teams. It's the defence, mate. You can't keep leaking 27, 30 points every week.
Did the Titans deserve to win that game?
No. Seriously? At 12-0? 12-0 with, I think it was 12 minutes and 41 seconds I saw on the clock. I was thinking, man, 60
See,
here.
I actually tweeted out and thought that. I said, we're 20 points better than this team.
Yeah.
How the hell are we losing this game?
Well, it's, again, I think interpretations are, it's a little bit like rugby these days where different referees are refereeing the games differently. And they've all got different interpretations. But if you get your momentum right, and this is what the Titans did, they got on a roll and they kept getting on a roll. And then when they went down that left-hand edge, with Brian Kelly and Dallin Watene-Zelezniak made those two poor defensive decisions, and then they come up with some really big errors at crucial times and chase the game and don't get the bounce or the and Webster said this, I thought we were going to get that call.
Yeah, I thought Dallin, but it was a knock-on. Same as Egan, it was a knock-on.
When you don't get that, they all start to compound and things start to happen. Your head goes down, the yelling from Sean, the frustration from Roger, you know what I mean? The errors here and there. Mate, what does he do? What does he do this week? Does he drop Dallin? Because I think Dallin's struggling to hold a spot. Rocco Berry, well, Brian Kelly, I was thinking, Brian Kelly, like Rocco's been going all right, but Brian Kelly, mate, after that game, you think, man, geez, where's this kid
look at the next three games. They've got the Knights away, they've got the Roosters away. Again, the Roosters just pounded St George, put 60 on them, and then the Panthers. These three games could end the season. These three games could absolutely catapult the season, but these three games, two of those three have to be won.
Well, it starts to get like that, Marty, like when you break it down, you try and break it down into blocks of 5, so you're going, right, here's where the game's played, what turnaround have the players got, and what are our injuries looking like. Now, take the injuries, for instance. We had a really young bench. We got Laban out there on the left edge. We got players that, because of injuries, you've had to give debuts to. But the whole comp is going through this. The whole comp is going through this. So you do start to get to that point where you've got to now go, oh, man, like this one that we thought we were going to win. See, when you say you should have got one, then you've got to get one of the ones that you thought you weren't going to get.
Let's go into some more specifics. Kicking game for a start. Are we too predictable? Sean did one grubber at the end. It didn't come off, but it almost came off. Is it time that we need a couple of other options in terms of the kicking?
What I hate about structured football, when you're looking at coaching the NRL at the moment, you don't have to be a genius to see that everyone's coaching the same structure with variants around the lead runners and the sweeping roles and where they go from and how they go. Yep, so that's what the coaches do. What's missing from the game is like throwing the ball to Roger and just letting him go. Like, give him the football. Like that time he went down that left edge there with the 1 metre sideline before he threw it out to the winger because Montoya's got no idea, like the defenders, of what Roger's going to do. It's pure frustration. He's calling for that ball 2 tackles earlier because he knows he's got the footwork to beat that player. That's missing from our game. We've lost that. That's a purist, Roger yelling out, give me the football, I can beat him. Yep. I remember Kevin Ira yelling, give me the football. I'm looking at him going, give me the ball so I can throw it to him as quick as I can. Know what I mean? You do that. That's what you do. Unfortunately, the structure is getting that type of play out of the game, and I don't like it. The kicking game is, I think, is one of the most boring parts of a football game. So if the NRL are listening, take a point off the kicking game.
So every time you do a bomb, the big bomb to Manu, that you don't like that.
Any kick you score a try from.
Well, that's the only way the Warriors scored for about 5 years.
See, rugby union, what do they got? They got 5-point try. They got bonus points, and you can win a game and get close to a game and get points from all sorts of things.
Yeah, that's rubbish though, man. You don't want to introduce that
what rugby league should do is they should encourage blokes trying to score tries from a movement, not from a kick. So you take a point off them.
Why are we losing the ruck at the moment?
Well, is it? I think one thing is definitely depth. Okay, so we don't have anyone, which was the same problem last year. Jazz Tavaga and Walker, when they came on the back of Tohu Harris and Whanua Blake last year, they gave us something extra. And it was really, really good. We haven't had Walker and Jazz Tavaga this year. So you've got Walker 1 week, Tavaga 1 week. Now you've got, Bunty 1 week. He's out for a while. Then Tom Ali comes in and you get all these new kids coming in. There's just no consistency in that change through the middle of the game, which means that players have to play longer games too. And I just think when you've got to leave players out there longer than they're meant to be out there, and if you go back to that chat about, mate, this didn't just happen overnight. You got to go back to when they lost to the Dolphins at the back end of the year, lost that series. They were going on a losing run there to end up where they are with all these injuries. I think, unless we get the likes of Noah Cordair back, the big boy from Brisbane out there on the edge.
Cable.
Yep, Capel. You're going to struggle with these young blokes that are in there. The step up's just too big for them.
All right, a couple of quick questions then. Kempy, pulling 5 starting players out of any team. Tell me who wins every game, says Paul. You're exactly right, Paul. I think he's covered that. What about Adam Pompey? Is like he's fully forgotten. Could even put him on the wing. Very good tackler, says Flynn.
I like Adam. I thought he, and Rocco's been playing good football, but at the moment, Adam Pompey doesn't miss a hell of a lot of tackles. He was defending quite well last year. I think he's the forgotten one out of this whole Roger Tuivasa-Sheck move to the centres, But there's no reason why Adam can't move into the centres and throw Rocco onto the wing. These are all the conversations that Webster will be having with his coaches. Like, what do we do? Because if Devlin keeps turning his body back in and not playing and relying and trusting his centre, mate, his centre's going to... Rocky Berry's a 30-game NRL player. Like, you're making me feel bad enough as it is, mate. You don't have to keep coming and helping me. And it all started when Brian Kelly got that ball from the scrum and went around Rocco, and Devlin went, oh, man, I've got to go and help him. Now, yes, give him the confidence that he can make that tackle up. Don't have to go there all game and let Kelly just pass the ball past you and they go down that left edge.
Why is Roger standing so goddamn deep on attack?
Because he wants the football. It's simple.
Yeah?
So Roger's sitting down there saying, you got to think, he's 31 years of age, and when he was, he was 17 at the schoolboy tournament out here in South Auckland, Rugby League tournament. So he ain't that kid no more. You know what I mean? Where he says, just give me the football and I'm going to beat players. Now he's smart enough to stand out the back and look at it and yell at his 5'8", who's sitting there, and say, throw me the ball nice and early, mate, and just let me go. So Roger's, the deepness of what they call that sweep play that comes out, it's more of a camouflage why Roger's sitting out the back here, because they try and swing on you and make defenders make defensive decisions on you. Sometimes Roger should just be flat and just say, throw me the football.
Head to head.
6 or so different sporting topics du jour concerning rugby league, and then we'll take a little break, and Daniel Anderson is going to join us. Normally we'd have Daniel at this particular point of the program, but we've delayed that for just a few minutes. In no particular order, I'm going to give you a topic. You're going to argue yes or no, for or against. The Warriors are not making the top 4. For or against?
Oh, I can't see it. So I'm going to say no, they're not going to make it. Look, I think that the players need to be having a season like they did last year, all across the board. And I'm not seeing it at the moment, Marty. We've got injuries. We've got too many players. Like Wade, unfortunately, having a couple of poor weeks. Dallin, who was on fire last year, out of a little bit of form. And if they're out of form in this competition, it's starting to take shape up with this top 5 of the Broncos, Seagulls, Panthers, Storm and Sharks. It'll be too hard to catch.
Okay, so I'm going to have to argue again for the fact that we are going to make the top 4. Look, I'm not going to lose the faith yet because we've only played 8 games, okay? But when you look at the Sharks, Storm, Panthers, Eagles and Broncos as the top 5, that's the immovable object. I mean, all of those are good teams. They're consistent teams. We've got to get some consistency. But last year you had Devlin having the best year he's ever had. You had Sean playing out of his brain. You had Adam playing out of his brain you've got Wade Egan playing his best football ever. So we need all of those guys to be doing that again, to be playing at that level again. And it's not going to happen unless that happens. Look, injuries are going to take their toll on every team. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, but I don't think that this particular squad is winning a premiership. I still think we're lacking in a couple of areas. I think we need... If Adam gets replaced by Fish, I think we need another one of those guys. I'd like to see an Ali Lauatiti, a ball-playing second rower. I want to see some more variance in the centres, and I want to see another version of a kicking game, if possible.
As you've thought about it.
Roosters and Manly are both making the 8, for or against?
I'm for.
Both of those teams.
Both of those sides. Yeah, I think the Roosters on the weekend just showed what they can do once they get some form together. Young Walker is playing out of his skin. His kicking game was on fire. And you've got players playing for origin spots too. So the Desco's back. Manu's the best player in the world. Who knows where they're going to end up. Manly, mate, wouldn't it be good for Manly to make the top 4?
Why?
Because I think every person in New Zealand loves Manly.
Well, they did when Graham Lowe and Reggie and Posty were playing, mate.
Is that when Newcastle beat him at Carlo?
I'm sure they're doing.
Remember
I would
that?
say, in terms of Manly, I'd say that Manly have a damn good chance of making the top 4. I'm not going to go with your Roosters, only because I'm looking at patterns. The last 4 games, yes, they thrashed St. George. They lost to the Storm before that. They beat the Knights really close before that, and then they lost to the Dogs. So, St. George, Knights and Dogs, 3 out of the last 4 games, and they've only won 1 of those 3. So they're yet to convince me that side the Warriors, they've got to do it against those top 5 sides. You've got to beat those guys. Okay? And until they can do that, that's where I'll press pause and go, yeah, not quite convinced yet. The Roosters are sitting in 7th at the moment. Paul Kent should be removed from all his rugby league programs after the video that emerged on the weekend.
Okay. I'll tell you what, Paul, don't look at the ground, mate. If you're looking at the ground, you're not looking at the bloke throwing them at you. And, so if you can put your head down too, just a little bit of advice here, you get forward momentum and an easy thrown into a tree quite easily. I think it's a mash-up, this. You know why? I think it's Tyson up against Jake. Was it Jake? What's his name?
The guy, I hate the guy from who? The internet guy. Yeah, that
Jake
guy,
Paul.
dickhead, yeah.
Jake
Just
Paul.
call him dickhead, mate.
I think it's a prelude, mate. This is what it's going to look like, Tyson and Jake Paul.
Look, I think that it's going to be very difficult for Fox Sport to put him back on. He got off the other charges, and that's fine. Everyone has the day in court, and everyone is allowed that. But this is just ridiculous. This is a couple of old drunk guys going.
It wasn't too old, mate. The other guy would have been 27.
You think? But he's been
30
goaded
at the
into it.
most.
His mates are trying to stop him. He takes his. Well, what the hell are you doing, mate?
Where was the pub?
And then,
Jeez.
of course, then he gets thrown into the tree at the end of it. I mean, if Fox Sport have removed, are they going to bring him back?
Well, if you're coming back, I would have thought you would have kept your head down and got on with it, not jumped in a ring. I'll tell you, boxing's taken over. Maybe you should talk to No Limit.
The Sharks are making the top 4 dead set, sir.
Oh, God. I can't even answer this one. I would love to say out in the Shire there, Cronulla, that they were going to make the top 4, but they've been so disappointed over the last couple of years. You get a bit of a false economy with the Sharks. They'll go, Nico Hines are talking about him being the number 6 for New South Wales because he's on such good form at the moment. Yet, if you look against his game against the Kiwis last year, was one of the reasons why we beat him by 30. So you make him play that next level up, and he ain't good enough. And I think that's their problem. When they get to the back end of the season, they just aren't good enough.
Well, at the moment, and again, I'll go through their results. They've only lost 1. They've lost to the Tigers. This is a weirdness at the draw. They've played the Raiders twice in the last 4 weeks, but the 2 latest results that they've had, putting 40 points on the Cowboys and going to Canberra and winning 40-0, and they were goddamn impressive last night. Your boy, Danny Levi, the worst player in the league, and I'm going to argue about this. That guy should be playing reserve grade. How the hell he gets to keep his bloody spot? Is he?
He wore the Kiwi jersey.
Does he know when you've got a football under your arm, you actually squeeze it tightly to your body? It's not a handbag that you've just robbed off somebody, mate.
Have you ever dropped the football?
Don't ask me about playing football. I can talk about it, mate. Don't ask me about ever playing it, okay? Melbourne Storm, quietly ticking away there. Is it a Storm versus Panthers final again?
Ooh, I don't know if it's... It could be, Marty. I still think if there's a smoky that you want to throw into that conversation is the Broncos. I'm not convinced about the Sharks and definitely ain't convinced about the Eagles. But I think the Broncos can still play a part in this. But the Storm, with that spine and the way they just grind games out, and the Panthers and Nathan Cleary coming back, you're probably right.
The Warriors only get to play these teams once this year, and that's a very fortunate thing in the draw, isn't it? Because as far as the Wilds are concerned, we've got to beat these. To win this competition, you have to beat the Panthers and you have to beat you've got to beat those teams.
Well, you got to beat them in the 4 anyway. If you get through top 8, you got to beat them.
I think that the Storm are just quietly building. They've won every single game by under 8 points, and then they turn around and they smash South like they smashed them 54-20 on the way. This is a fantastic side. I hate them. They're the Antichrist of rugby league, but I just think that they have got a really good squad and they've got a great coach who they are still playing for. Latrell Mitchell is considering sitting out Origin. Would you pick him?
I wouldn't even pick him. I don't even think he's in the conversation. Where would you play him? Like, dead set. You're talking about What, he's going to play fullback? No. You know, the argument there is Tedesco or Trebojevic. Trebojevic has probably taken one centre spot. They're asking Jack White to come back on his other South Sydney mate on the other side, and then all of a sudden you've got Zach Lomax in the mix. And did he play himself out of the game on the weekend? I don't even think Latrell Mitchell at the moment is in the conversation. So I think he's looking at throwing up a smoke screen and throw the scent off his actual poor form.
Yeah, I think that the reason he said it is just to remind the selectors that he's actually still alive, because there's nothing that he's done on the field this year that would actually... There's one try against Brisbane, which was brilliant. Apart from that, I think it was against Brisbane. I just, as soon as a guy says, I'm considering not playing, get out, go away. I mean, you don't tell us when you're going to play. We select you and decide that we want to select you. You don't tell us that you're playing Origin or you don't want to play Origin. The moment that you open your mouth and say that, you're gone as far as I'm concerned. Well, your head's not in the right space.
I think Maguire's going to pick a totally different team. I think you'll be surprised, Marty, what he actually pulls out there.
Okay, we'll go one more, which is... The Final Four is the Final Four. Eels, West Tigers, Titans and Rabbits, they are all going to be that's where they finish this year.
Ooh, yeah.
Bottom four.
Do the Rabbits give them a little bit of a scare and get past the Eels and the Knights?
You keep talking about the Rabbits. Oh, they'll change their coach and they're going to play for a new coach.
Well,
That'll last one game, mate.
They're going to change the coach. Who knows? We talk about Latrell Mitchell. Can he come back and make a massive difference to that side? Oh, I think you're right. Look, the Eels are the most disappointing side in the competition this year. Brad Arthur's probably the next bloke, so he heads on the chopping block along with Demetrio. They'll probably end up in England coaching up there with all the other old washed up NRL coaches.
I'd say that they are the Final Four, because West Tigers and Titans were two that were fighting for the wooden spoon at the start of the year before a ball was even kicked, right? The Rabbits are
West Tigers are poor.
Well, you were all over Benji Marshall when he was 2-1, mate, weren't you? He was like Flano. He's like Flano's second cousin. You couldn't stop yourself. Coat him in ice cream and give it a lick, mate.
Give him a break. He's learning his trade.
But he might not be a good coach. Why can't we just say this out loud?
He might not be. You're dead right, but he might be.
They've lost 4 in a row.
He's only 4 games.
You're going to blame injuries on that team?
What do you say to an NRL player when he's playing NRL? He has to have how many games before he's any good? Come on. You've talked to so many blokes and they've always said this to you.
25 to 30.
50 games in the NRL. 50 games in the NRL.
I'd say 25 to 30. You play one good season, surely.
So he's 4 games into a coaching career. Give him a break. Wait till he's at 50.
Fluix Cleanup Award.
Fluix Cleanup Award. This is where you take the gunk and you turn it into absolute gold. It is a brilliant product. We get so many inquiries about it. Who are you going to award this to this week? We'll go to a break and then we'll come back with Daniel Anderson. So who have you got this week?
I'm going to give it to a team that actually didn't play in the NRL this weekend. I'm going to give it to the Jersey Flag side at the Warriors, who went out there in the very first year and won the competition. It's never ever been done before. TJ Ashford, the coach, young boy in Auckland from Manurewa here, coached locally. It's taken these kids along with a couple of other really good. Grant Pocklington is another young boy who coached Point Chev here in the local competition and went out there and beat everyone, all the best in Australia. I'll tell you what it did show me. Everyone's saying we're putting ourselves on the map. It shows me where Australian Rugby League is at the moment. When we can put a team, if you look at history, that in its very first year goes out and wins that competition. It's never been done before. The Jersey Flag and the Harold Matthews Cup have been around since I was playing. You know what I mean? And yet we can put a team in there this year and win it. And to me, that says Australian Rugby League in their junior grades and dire straits. Fluix
Cleanup Award. Let's break. We'll come back. Tony Kemp, former Warriors coach, very proud Kiwi, played his professional league, of course, in both hemispheres. Daniel Anderson, former Warriors coach, is going to join us in about 3 or 4 minutes' time.
He's a lich.
He's the most successful ever Warriors coach, coached us to a grand final, coached the Kiwis in the 100th Test win against the Kangaroos. He is a much beloved figure here in New Zealand and also obviously in Australia. It is a very warm welcome onto the program, Daniel Anderson. Hi Daniel, it's Martin here and Kempy's on the other mic. Welcome to the show, mate.
Nice to be there. How are you, Martin? Kempy, how are you, mate?
I'm great, mate.
Yeah, mate, good to talk to you. Ando, how's things, mate? Good to see that your Roosters got 60 points on the weekend.
You take the wins when they come, as you know, Kempy, and you enjoy the wins because it is hard at the moment in the NRL.
Daniel, Tony says that you're still heavily involved with the Roosters in terms of recruitment?
That's correct. Yeah, head of recruitment there. So watching players in every game, and juniors more than likely. I know that we get a little bit of a bad rap because we have got some young Kiwi boys, but I know now the Warriors are going to be formidable. It used to be a honey hole for Australian teams, but winning the Harold Matthews on the weekend, the under-17s comp, every boy's going to want to play for the Warriors. Makes my job harder.
Yeah, and how's it looking, Ando? What does it say about the Australian game that a Kiwi side can come in on its first year and win that comp?
It shows it's very even, mate. It's at that age, 17s, you only need, 3 or 4 real star players, and then the rest of the boys be able to hold their gloves up, and that's a winnable competition for anyone. 19s is harder. They've got more, the class starts to rise a bit more then. So great job by the Warriors in the young ages, but, 19s is probably the second best comp outside the NRL in the whole rugby league universe in the Southern Hemisphere.
Got to ask you about how the Warriors are tracking. It was only weeks ago. Several Aussie commentators were saying this is a side that can win the Premiership. Well, the last 3 weeks have been very tough. So what are you seeing?
I would say that Broncos and Penrith are still the teams. I don't think there's anyone that's come near them yet for like the high points of a performance. The Warriors are finding it like every other team. It's difficult to string wins together, and whether it's because of the physical nature of the competition or it only takes you to lose 1 or 2 players through suspension or injury and you suddenly become very vulnerable. So, look, the Warriors are not too different from the Roosters. I think they've got 3 or 4 wins. If you can get 4 wins in a row, you are going to go from mid-table to top of the table, and that's just what you see with the Melbourne Storm at the moment. They've only just won.
And are you when you're talking about this competition and how tough it's getting, there's lots of talk about the rule changes. They're talking about the kick-off changing at the moment. How do we stop collision? What rules do we make that sort of keep the game exciting? Have you thought a little bit about that and what you would make changes to if you had to?
Yeah, I have thought about it. We speak about it in-house with Trent Robinson and some of the coaching staff. We're trying to predict, Kempy and Martin, where the game's going to be in 2 years, 3 years, so that you can recruit players which suit that competition. That's the most difficult thing at the moment. So the short dropouts and the short kickoffs, especially the short dropouts, is literally a lottery. It's a great contest. And so everyone's looking for height because you've got to bring that down for starters. And as you said, the kickoffs is an interesting one because it's a dynamic collision, which is very much our sport. No one could forget Kempi Fita Paliacina. No. And that was his bread and butter. He was the number 1 in history of the game at the kickoff. But the injuries are normally coming, it's not from the players, it's 3 players trying to squeeze into 2 spots in the defensive line. And even Moses Sully on the weekend, it was Jaden Sewer who pushed him into Jared Warrior-Hargraves' collision in an uncomfortable manner. So I think coaches are going to have to be aware of their own tackle technique. And that's a lot of things we did 20 years ago. Some of the coaching techniques are starting to come back into the fore now.
Daniel, in terms of I don't know if I want to say intrusion, we're getting it a lot in sport though. We've got the VAR, which is always causing controversies in English football. You've got the TMO in rugby, of course. You've got the bunker in rugby league. And we saw it in the Warriors game, the absolute minutiae of, a Wade Egan knock on, or did Devlin get his hand to the ball and whether that's a try or not. What are your thoughts on all of that? Would you rather that it's ref by the rules, or do you like the technology and the way that technology is now deciding so many of these incidents in games?
Oh, Martin, look, I've got to confess here. I was in charge of the referee.
I know.
When we brought in
That's
the
what I'm
try
asking
no try with the referee. So,
Yeah.
mate, I'm no mug to say that was a bad decision. So I do like the bunker. I know that it's difficult. I'm a big believer in showing replays in normal speed.
Yep, totally agree.
Because you cannot possibly have no separation when you bring a grubber kick from the air to the ground. It's impossible unless you grab it. So when you're doing a one-handed put down, there's separation. So I'm just and even for double movement, show it normal speed. See if his upper body ends up over the line. I don't know. You guys are watching as many games as I am. The NFL has become, it's about attacking play. So all of us realists and purists that love a dour defensive game, that's not what the Dolphins want in marketing. They want tries. So I think the bunkers should lean on, give it a try if it's that hard to separate.
Yeah.
And let's get some points in our games.
Yeah, good call, Ander. Hey, mate, just before we let you go, how's the health these days here, Copen?
Yeah, mate, the reason where, I had to delay a bit, I was at therapy this morning, so still doing that regularly 3 times a week. If I saw you now, Kempy, you'd say I look better.
Yeah.
But it's a minute thing. My left hand still doesn't do much. My right hand is carrying the heavy lifting. And, I'm on robotics with walking and stepping and things like that. So I'm better than I was 2 months ago. Let's see how I progress in another 2 months. But I'm healthy, mate, mentally, enjoying my work and enjoying getting out, watch my girls play soccer on Sunday. So a bit of real life experience is good.
Daniel, I've been thinking, sitting here for all day yesterday, and I was asking my partner as well. I just want to tell you that I love you, mate.
Thanks, Marty.
I don't know. I mean, I've got 100 questions I want to ask you, and all I want to do is say, Daniel, I love you, mate.
No. I'm happy to answer the questions. Happy to take the love too.
Good on you, Endo. You just keep getting better, mate, and say hi to Nat and everyone, and tell your fat mate Paul Donker to stop calling me.
No worries. I'm looking forward. I'm aiming to get over there in a year. That's my goal, to get to NZ in a year's time. That'll be what I'm aiming for.
I'd love to see you at a Warriors game, mate. Perfect. That would be brilliant.
Oh, so would I, Mark.
Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate you, mate. Awesome. Daniel Anderson with us here.
And they've got an overlap here.
TK's Top 5.
First try.
Yeah, I've just been sitting there all emotional for a couple of days, Tony, I know that you've gone to see him and stuff like that, and you don't know what to ask, and you asked the last question, which was the question that I wanted the answer to. How are you and everything? And he answered it for us. He said he's happy, mate.
Yeah, look, when that tragic accident happened up there in the Central Coast, and it got back to me that Ando wasn't a bad. Well, I was talking to Donk. He was our manager, a good mate of mine, and I was saying, well, how is Ando? He's not good, mate. It was touch and go. It was touch and go for a long time then, and me and my partner thought, we'll go to Sydney, and I said, yeah, it'd be nice to go and catch up with Ando. So I went out to, he's out west, and I showed up at the place where he was staying. Said, hey, Ando, when can I come and visit? And he goes, oh, mate, well, just, let me know when you're coming over, and I can get organised, and, it should be fine to see it, because I met him going really, really well. And I said, well, how about now, mate? I'm standing at the car park. So he said, you're not? And I went, yeah, I am, mate. I'm just out here in the car park. So he said, I'll give us 15 minutes, and rolled out. And it was, it was a bit of a shock to me to see him the way that he was. He's in a wheelchair, he couldn't move, and I said, want a coffee? So when I got a coffee, he goes, yeah, I'll have a coffee, mate, but you're going to have to give it to me.
Wow.
So, here I am giving my mate a coffee and having a chat about the old days. Mate, I forgot who was in a chair. We just sat there and laughed about what we did when we were young. Mate, we're both 34 when we took over the Warriors. We're the youngest coaches ever.
Yeah.
And we just went on that fantastic run together, good cop, bad cop type game. Me and him used to play with the boys, and he was a wonderful coach, absolute wonderful coach. He had a fantastic career. And I see a lot of Andrew Webster in him, with the way that he's so transparent. It is a tragedy, but like Ando said, he's still working for the Roosters, and he just, he's a redhead, mate. He ain't going to give up.
Number 5.
Give us your top 5 then, Tony, and will they match the actual top 5 of the NRL, which is Sharks, Storm, Panthers, Eagles, Broncos, and at 5?
I'm going to give it to the Roosters. I think they're on a roll. I think the Roosters and what they did, which is what the Warriors couldn't do, is they went on with it, and they've got so many players that played themselves into form. Young Walker at halfback. Luke Keary came out today and announced his retirement, so another feather in their cap to want to win competitions this year, with Jared Warrior-Hargreaves going along with Manu as well, heading over to Rugby Union. Of course, Tedesco in a couple of weeks will probably get named at the fullback, so the Roosters.
Number 4.
Oh, the Broncos,
Warriors have dropped out of his top 5. I can feel it already. Yep. Broncos at 4?
Mate, well, I think Ando just made my mind up on that one, because I was gonna say whether the Broncos or the Sea Eagles, but I'm going to go the Broncos. I think Lockie, your team's, mate, if the speed on that side is scary. Honestly,
You put them at 4. You could have put them at
3.
Well, I'm going to go the Sharks.
Okay. All right. Well,
Because I think if they finish in the 4, they'll probably finish down the table.
So you've got
They're not gonna
Manly in your
finish
top
1 or
5 at all
second.
here. You've got Manly in there, right?
No, I'm still not convinced. I still think that they are yet to find another gear.
Sharks at 3.
Sharks at 3. That's me. Sharks
Oh,
at
yeah,
3.
okay, you're right.
I don't mind the Shire too. Great spot.
Oh,
Great spot.
all right. No, number 2.
Panthers.
Number 2.
Panthers at 2. I think Nathan Cleary is going to be back. If you want to bet, what about Brian Toy? He scores a first try this week. I was a week off. Scores a first try.
After your last effort, mate. I mean, as
How
far
come
as
you
you
didn't call me? I would have given you that.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
But no, I'm going to go.
Saving
I'm going
for a
to go.
mortgage,
I'm going to go the
not spending
Panthers at 2, and
that
they're going to
leaves
go on a
number
roll.
1.
Number 1.
That's team you love to hate, the Storm. Craig Bellamy and his boys. Munster is playing better than he's ever played. I remember when I watched him in his very first season, I said this guy's going to be an immortal. He's that good. So if he can, you know what the thing with him? He's like Jonah, mate. He's stood it on one leg. Imagine if he was fit.
We got 1 minute to finish on the Warriors away at Newcastle, your old mob. Next game up, which is on Sunday, which is the big break. So he's had 3 days where players can go off, Webby, and now he's got to pick the team right, and they've got to win this game. It's not no game's a must-win, but I think this one has to be won. Contradiction in terms.
It does. You know, you've got to, again, it's a tough trip. You know, you've got to fly into Sydney and, you know, whether they bus up or jump on a quick flight up to the Hunter Valley there in Newcastle. And, you know, it's the hardest place to go and win a game. And they've had some great games up there. One of the best games in my coaching career was when Francis Melly scored that winning try down there on that right edge, where we were nowhere near it. Andrew Johns was just carving us up, and somehow we got that one. Stace came out and put on an absolute show. So I think it's going to be one of those games. Again, Marty, I think with the Newcastle Warriors games, it's who wants it the most. You know what I mean? I think both teams' leaky defence at the moment is going to be around, well, which team's going to hang in there the longest and wants it the most.
We'll talk about this next Monday. That is our show today.
The man just set up the try.
That was the Rugby League Hour, brought to you by Microbiome Solutions Limited, solving environmental issues using green technologies. Visit microbio.co.nz.
It started with a Mitchell try.